Sharese Reyes. I am the chair of social action for the Atlanta Suburban Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am also a member of the Atlanta Citizen Review Board. I am by day an attorney and by all days and nights and times a mom of a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old and a cat named Q-Tip and a dog named Fife. So we're the tribe called Reyes around these parts. But I am also a partner and a volunteer with Black Voters Matters Fund for several years now.
Okay, cool. That's a lot of great things you just gave us. We appreciate your efforts and being a great Black woman, Black superhero out here as a mom. I know how the Black moms are. Okay, so I have a few questions I want to ask you. One of them is, where does your spirit of service come from?
My ancestors, it's in my blood. I grew up in New York State, in Long Island, but I grew up with two parents who were born and raised during Jim Crow in Mississippi, the South. And my mom always talked to us about the work that she did during the civil rights movement. And I know that my grandfather, her father, was one of the first African American men who went from sharecropper to landowner. And that was no small feat, again, in Mississippi during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So I've always had a desire to give back to my community. I Throughout high school, I was working a number of civic organizations that continued when I went to undergrad at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Operated the Kappa Omicron chapter on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill. That really just married for a lifetime my passion toward social action, civic engagement, and honestly, a commitment to leaving this world, my community, a better place than where I found it and when I found it. So I would say my spirit of activism and the work that I do in the community comes from how I was raised and what my ancestors before me had done. And I mean, they set the path and we just continued on that path. And I so appreciate the path that they were on. And then when I look at, again, being a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, when I look at how our 22 founders started our organization, established it from day one as a change agent. I mean, we're change agents. And then I look at some of our honorary members, like Fannie Lou Hammer is one of my heroes. And what I always learn from her is you don't need a certain number of degrees. You don't need to have ESQ behind your name, that any and all of us can serve our communities. And that's exactly what she did. And so I've always been inspired by her. So that's where my spirit of activism and civic engagement comes from.
That was a great answer. It's a great answer. Next question I wanted to ask you is, what is your favorite volunteer experience?
So this was really hard. When I saw that question, I was just like, I mean, I've done so much and been a part of so much, it's really hard to pinpoint. But one that I'll tell you about is when I first moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 2015, I continued my participation with an organization called the LAC Foundation, Loving Others as Christ Commands. And one of my classmates at UNC and his wife started this organization, and they were founded initially in Baltimore. And it really was us going out and feeding the unhoused and taking care of the needs of the unhoused and praying with them and just trying to meet the gaps, right? Standing in that gap. And when I moved to Atlanta, Juan Madison, he said, you know, Sharese, I want to continue the work in Atlanta. And he had already partnered with some folk who were doing the work. And he said, I'd love for you and your sister to be a part of that. And I said, absolutely. So we did, and we had done these We had went into the community and fed the unhoused on several occasions. But right when we were up on that, like the 2020 elections or leading up to the 2020 elections, and we knew how important it was going to be. And we knew we were also collecting information for the census. We wanted to make sure that we had an accurate count. And we knew that Black men and Black children are historically undercounted. We said, okay, we got to do things differently. We have to expand how we're reaching people because there is a lot of mistrust in certain communities with providing our information to the government, right? I mean, it literally goes back to like the Dawes rolls. I mean, some of my family members who were natives were not on those rolls because, we just had this mistrust of giving our information to the government. And so I said, you know what, maybe we can partner, we can feed the unhoused, we can also register voters because even though they may not have a fixed address, we knew that they could register to vote in the parameters around registering them to vote. But we also knew that we could literally take our smartphones and devices out there and have them complete the census. And so I had decided, okay, in partnership with my organization, but then also we have been working with Black Voters Matter Fund. And, thankful for the grants that you all provided, we were able to say, okay, well, we can use some of that grant money to pay for the meals as we go out there to feed them, but also educate them on the importance of voting, the census, et cetera. And when we went out, I had my kids with me. And my mom also participated. And so it was beautiful to look out and see like literally 3 generations in my family. Like I said, my sister also participates with a lot of these activities. So to look out and see 3 generations of my family out doing this important work to benefit our communities, that was a beautiful thing. And it was made possible because of our partnership with Black Voters Matter Fund. And so I think of that, and that's something that's still near and dear to my heart. My son, because of how I've had my kids involved in this work that I've been doing all their lives. So even for my son's 10th birthday back in 2017, he said to me, Mommy, I don't want a big party. I'd rather take that money and go feed people who don't have food. And so, he was 10 and he opted to take his little money to do that. And so we did that for him. We wanted to honor that spirit in him. So to see him even go from 2017 to 2020 and to be involved in actively getting people to complete the census and talking to people about the importance of voting, I mean, that's just something that I think will live with me forever, because I think it helped me ignite that same passion in my kids through that work. So that's one of my favorite memories of participating in activism.
That was excellent to have your family members out there working in the streets of Baltimore. I'm not too far from Baltimore, so I know how like rural it is and like how important it is to get out there and help the underrepresentation community. So another question I wanted to ask you was, can you provide some advice on those who want to do more for the community but don't know how to?
So the advice that I would provide is to get involved with an organization. And that's twofold. One, you don't have to recreate any wheels. That can be a daunting task, because when you start to look at all that our community needs, and we know that there are a lot of needs, it can be daunting to think that you're on your own doing this work. So partner with an organization like Black Voters Matter Fund, sign up as a volunteer. You can start with texting and phone banking. And then there are in-person activities. You can do voter registration drives. But partnering with an organization whose mission closely aligns with your morals, your values, and what you're looking to get out of your service, I think is an excellent way to start to establish relationships, because so much of the work that is being done in our communities to better our communities, it's partnerships. And so, like, for example, like I said, I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And as the chair of the Social Action Committee for the Atlanta Suburban Alumnae chapter, we're 450 plus members strong in ASAC. But when I look across all of Georgia and the southern region for us, in our southern region, we have 20,000 plus sorors. or members who are all actively working towards social action and goals. But even with those numbers, and we're 360,000 plus members globally, but even with those numbers, we can't do this work alone. So we have to partner with organizations. So we partner with Black Voters Matter Fund and other organizations doing the work. So anybody interested in coming on board, meet us. We will meet you where you are. Come and partner with organizations. And I said it's twofold, because the second thing about partnering with organizations is this work can lead to burnout. I'll be the first to tell you, after those 2020 elections, I just needed to take a week of self-care where I would not talk about elections, would not talk about candidates, would not talk about like what's next on the horizon for us, because we just had to recharge our batteries. And then we came back really focused on what we needed to do going forward. And for us here in Georgia, we knew we didn't have much time, because there was certainly backlash, right? Quickly, for the amazing work that we did organizing the community, because we immediately were faced with voter suppression bills. So we knew we had to get back in the fight. But the good thing about being partnered with organizations and being attached to organizations doing this work is you have like-minded people who can tell you, Sharese, take a step back. We got this. You take a break. We're going to carry this, forward. And it's good to have that supportive network. And so my number one piece of advice to anybody interested in doing this work is connect with organizations that are like-minded, where you can channel your frustrations and your energy into those causes to propel the message forward. Because as the African proverb talks about, we are a village, and it does take a village to do this work, and none of us can walk this road alone. You need to have like-minded people standing shoulder to shoulder with you in these fights.
It's great how you keep emphasizing how it's important to have partnerships and connections with other groups or people, so you can work together to get the work done and achieve goals that we need to. So this is the fun part now. So now it's time to some few fun questions I want to ask you. So first one is, if you could spend 24 hours with a former or a current activist, who would you choose?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a hard one. I'm gonna go back to Fannie Lou Hamer. Um, like I said, I just respect all that she did for our community, and the conditions that she did them um, within. Yes, I have a JD and a bachelor's, but my heart extends to the many people in our community who don't have those credentials, and who, because they don't have those credentials, somehow their message gets diluted. But we know that those are the people who tend to live the day-to-day existence dealing with being a Black woman and being punished for being a Black woman. And it has always, even as a child, it always spoke to my soul when I heard her say, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think that that same energy that she gave when she testified before Congress, and she spoke truth to power, surrounded by, an audience that was not friendly to her. That's that same spirit and energy that I walk into when I walk into certain boardrooms, when I walk into certain courthouses, and I've always like harkened back to what she said and what she did, how she fought for educational advancements for our community, how she fought for eradicating other disparities in our community. And when you think about, she had a she was forced into sterilization outside of like her consent, without her consent. And I think about all she endured, and she never let that get her down. It propelled her to the work she did in the community. And so has always been an inspiration to me. And so when I became a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I knew she was an honorary member, I thought about that, and I always wanted to. Again, like I said, my parents were born and raised in the Jim Crow South in Mississippi, and I know her, you know, with her experience, I always would have loved to sit at the table and ask her, looking at what we're looking at now, we're here in 2023 and we still see some of the same issues in Tennessee and Georgia and Florida and Alabama. And I would love to talk to her about, how we can overcome. But I think the next best thing is when I look at your co-founders of BVM, because honey, Cliff and Latasha, I mean, they bring the fire each and every time and they inspire me. So I feel like when I attend BVM events, I'm getting a piece of that. But Fannie Lou Hamer and Dorothy Irene Height and Shirley Chisholm, I mean, so many, but Fannie is one of my favorite activists.
Okay, okay, that was a great answer. And the last question I wanted to ask you, so it's karaoke night, and what will be your go-to song to sing?
Okay, so I can't sing. I think I can, and when I'm alone, I will sing at the highest levels off key. But probably I'm going to go to some Whitney Houston. I am every woman, and because that's going to be my anthem when women take over. In fact, we were just in the halls of Congress this past weekend for our 34th Delta Days in the nation's capital. And we were meeting with Senator Warnock's legislative director, and he was saying, maybe this time, 20 years from now, we'll have our first Black woman senator coming out of the great state of Georgia. And it just was playing in my mind, like, that Whitney Houston, I'm every woman, because it's definitely our time to shine. Black women put democracy on our backs time and time again, particularly here in Georgia. It saved the nation. So yeah, I'm feeling real motivated by Whitney, Sister Whitney. May she rest in peace. Her anthem, "We are every woman, and it is all in me." So I sometimes I have to reach down deep when I get tired, right? Because sometimes you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. But I reach down deep and realize it's all already in me. And I'm gonna speak it into existence that Black women, we will lead the way and continue to do so.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Sharese. You gave us great answers, great feedback, and we appreciate you so much for partnering with BVM and volunteering. So, just on behalf of BVM, just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much. I mean, y'all have made our work so much easier. And again, I continuously say I'm in awe of everything that BVM is doing all throughout the South and all over. And you are my favorite partner. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that, right? But y'all are my favorite partners to work with. So thank you.
Okay, have a great day.
You too. Take care.